What do you say to a group of Druckerites about Peter Drucker? I mean, I could easily stand here and rattle off 100 Drucker principles and proverbs that you all know. And we all know them because they're also memorable. But I don't want to talk to you, as we just closed tonight, in just a word, not about his principle, but about Peter the man. I loved Peter Drucker. I didn't just admire him. I love this man. In my life, I've had a number of different mentors in different areas of my life. And Peter was one of those mentors.
Stephen Lee, pastor of the purpose-driven Hong Kong campus, first met Rick Warren in 2006, quote, because he has heard so much about him during his time working as the CEO of Peter Drucker Academy, the first private company registered in China as a charity organization, unquote. It is this shared love for Drucker that brought the two together. Saddleback Church reported in Bringing Saddleback to Hong Kong, Saddleback Hong Kong is a strategic church because of the connections it has with China. Stephen's years at Peter Drucker taught him many of the same principles and values that Saddleback Church has. Stephen inserts, ordinary people make a difference. Ordinary people do extraordinary things. It comes from Peter Drucker. I am able to agree to this in such short time with only a month of training because I know Peter Drucker in depth. Saddleback Church and Rick Warren stand for the same. Notice that Stephen Lee acknowledges that Saddleback Church and Rick Warren stand for the same thing as Peter Drucker. Lee can say this with such confidence because he knows Peter Drucker in depth. He said it is by Peter Drucker that ordinary people do extraordinary things. The source is admittedly Drucker, not Jesus Christ.
Peter Drucker was a truly Renaissance man. He studied widely, he read widely, and he understood society as a whole probably better than anybody of his generation. Certainly was brilliant, but he is often known simply in the areas of management and economics, but really he had much more to offer than that. He was a keen observer of society and the impact of demography on society, the impact of social trends on society, the impact of spirituality and religion, and his general consensus attitude was, it all matters.
Within the pages of The Essential Drucker by Peter Drucker, we read about how Bill Hybels also utilized Drucker's business practices to design a church that catered to the customer's needs. It says, Willow Creek Community Church in South Barrington, Illinois, outside Chicago, has become the nation's largest church. Bill Hybels designed a church to answer the potential customer's needs. G.A. Pritchard wrote, Willow Creek's strategy has also been discussed in the pages of Fortune magazine and the Wall Street Journal. In the latter, Peter Drucker explains that Willow Creek and its imitators are employing simple marketing ideas. None of these marketing lessons are new. Anyone who has taken a marketing course these past 30 years, or who has read a marketing text, should know them. In Bill Hybels' book Courageous Leadership, he cites his conversations with Drucker in regard to leadership. In his own words, under a subsection entitled Consulting Mentors about Performance Evaluations, Hybels referred to Peter Drucker as one of the two men who have most shaped my thinking on this issue, next to Jesus. Hybels crystallized his vision for Willow Creek in the 1980s at a dinner conversation with Drucker. Before Leadership Network, aka the Emerging Church, began, its founder, Bob Buford, was also consulting with Drucker. Bob Buford is not only the founder of Leadership Network, but also the founder of the Peter F. Drucker Foundation for Nonprofit Management. Bob Buford has often expressed his deep admiration for Drucker. Buford based Leadership Network on business management principles that he learned from Drucker. Following Drucker's strategies, Bob Buford only recruited leaders from successful churches as the first customers, worked only with those who were receptive to his goals, and only worked on things that would make a great deal of impact if successful. In 20 years of consultation with Leadership Network as a featured speaker and resource, Drucker's genius for business management caused the number of megachurches, over 2,000 attending, to grow tenfold. Drucker's influence was so remarkable on Leadership Network that Buford says the organization belongs partly to him.
Yeah, I think I had the opportunity to have the world's best mentor. Peter Drucker was the person that I most respected who was alive in my time.
My first introduction to Peter Drucker came through Leadership Network, and I was invited to meet Peter Drucker and Bob Buford and spend 3 days with them. Peter Drucker was the speaker. Bob Buford was the one who funded the program. And while there, I met a number of the professors from Fuller Seminary, as well as some young men who had been invited through Leadership Network and Bob Buford to come. There were a couple of our assistant pastors from the Calvary Chapel that were there as well. Weren't sure what it was all about. Heard a lot about Peter Drucker and his systems management. I did not become involved with Leadership Network. I just met for that short period of time.
Apologist and Pirate Christian radio host Chris Rosebrough interviewed emergent leader Doug Pagitt regarding the beginnings of the emergent church.
Can you tell us about what Leadership Network is and who Bob Buford is and that kind of stuff to start off with?
Yeah, Bob Buford is the funder and originator of a network called Leadership Network. So I was hired to create what they referred to in internal language there as the Young Leaders Network.
Got it.
And it was young in relationship to the other networks that exist in Leadership Network.
I don't think a lot of people really get this, is that you practically handpicked the entire crop of current leaders, both in the seeker-driven, purpose-driven, and emergent movements, all by yourself. You got Tony Jones, Dan Kimball, Mark Driscoll, you've got Rob Bell, Craig Rochelle, Andy Stanley, all of Chris C.
And a bunch of women.
Leadership Network was really instrumental in helping to start Willow Creek as well as Saddleback. Am I correct in that?
Well, not the churches, but they were influential in helping them think about creating associations where churches could learn from their particular models.
Okay, so like the Willow Creek Association.
Willow Creek Association, the Purpose-Driven Association.
Okay, and Buford, he was really tight with Peter Drucker, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Bob and Peter were personal friends, and Peter Drucker, who's a management guru to some people's mind and a thinker on especially nonprofit management principles, had encouraged Bob to think about investing his wealth in supporting churches, believing that one of the most under-realized and under-examined and under-resourced movements in North America in the 20th century was the advent of the large mega church, typically in suburbs and sort of non-denominational large mega churches.
He goes on to state that the Druckerites, Bob Buford, Bill Hybels, and Rick Warren, formed, bankrolled, and promoted the emerging church much the same way a music marketing company might form and promote a boy band like the Backstreet Boys or NSYNC. Rick Warren also endorsed Leadership Network organizer Bob Buford's book, Halftime, calling Buford a rare individual, and said, "I want every man in my congregation to read this inspiring story." Bob Buford reciprocates admiration to Rick Warren, saying on his official website, "Expect to meet changemakers." In the early days of Leadership Network, it was Bill Hybels and Rick Warren. Now these two have enormous self-sufficient teaching ministries on their own. As for megachurch pastor Bill Hybels and Willow Creek's role with Leadership Network in the emerging church, Bob Buford says, the first foundation conference was held in Dallas and was the beginning of a partnership between Bob and Linda, Leadership Network and Willow Creek Community Church. Bob and Linda provided the vision and willingness to underwrite any shortfall. Bill Hybels and the music and drama team from Willow Creek provided expertise in designing messages that hit the heart through a very high-quality blend of the spoken work, music, and drama. Considering the loyalties of Rick Warren and Bill Hybels toward Peter Drucker, it is no wonder that they have endorsed and promoted the emerging church, a product developed by fellow Druckerite Bob Buford.
Bill Hybels and Willow Creek played a very key role in launching Rob Bell and his church, Morris Hill, in Grand Rapids, Michigan. When you travel to Willow Creek, when you go into their bookstore, they have an entire section of the bookstore dedicated to just about every single sermon delivered by Rob Bell at Willow Creek. You can purchase them. Every single Pneuma DVD video is available. Every single book, and it's featured prominently. The reason why you will not hear Rick Warren or Bill Hybels publicly say Rob Bell, Tony Jones, Doug Pagitt, and them are teaching false doctrine is because they have a vested interest in the success of their products because they help develop them.
Leadership Network also was a very powerful force in all this. When I would call on somebody or go visit a church or, go to an event, and I would say I'm with Leadership Network, people tended to know what that meant.
Uh-huh.
So it wasn't the Doug Pagitt-ness so much as it was, the power of the position.
You had the clout of Bob Buford and Peter Drucker and the Willow Creek Association and the Saddleback Association all behind you.
Yeah, it was like, hey, those are people, I know who that group is. They write some good stuff, and they do some good things.
Implementing the secular business practices into the church from Peter Drucker, who was not even a Christian, will inevitably lead to destruction because it is making Drucker's humanistic model the foundation for building and growing the church, whereas the Bible teaches us that the church is built upon the foundation of the apostles and prophets, Jesus Christ himself being the chief cornerstone. Men can follow God's way or man's way in pursuit of church growth. May church leaders hearing this message be encouraged to follow God's way, since it is God's church, and Jesus said, I will build my church.